Hey everyone. Oh wait.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hi everyone. We're back. It's Angie Smith.
Brad Smith.
We're back in our third video installment. This week it's the Dumb Crumb Goes to the Movies.
Yes.
So what exactly does that mean for you? We actually are going to be talking about kind of the state of the current movie industry. How once upon a time you go to the movies and you would get popcorn and some candy. And now how that's given rise to actually a whole, almost like an explosion of dining options. And Brad's going to talk a little bit about that. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. And actually, Angie and I was going to talk about this, but I've had two people ask me about this, and I don't think we've said anything about it, which I
don't know.
I didn't think about it. Brad Smith, Angie Smith, we are not married, and we are not related. We just happen to have the same last name, and we're really good friends.
Yeah.
Because I had someone ask me, actually two people asked me if we were husband and wife, and we're not. We're just really good friends who happen to have the same last name.
Because it's like the most common last name in the world.
Yes, It is. And I actually brought up to one of the persons, the podcast often reference my wife, which I pointed out to the person when they asked me that I probably wouldn't be referencing my wife if she were sitting here next to me. So,
yes.
Yeah, so anyway, going back, yes, this is Dumb Crumb Goes to the Movies. And generally, my wife and I go to the movies, and oftentimes now we do take my nephew with us a lot. We go to the movies generally about once a week, sometimes more than once a week. And used to, growing up, you go to the movies, and it was generally, popcorn, candy, sometimes hot dog or maybe hamburger.
Nachos.
Yeah, nachos. That's pretty much it.
It's almost like going to a baseball game.
Yeah, it was.
Similar options.
Yes. And I think that's why, we're eating popcorn here, and that's generally... I actually was sitting at home the other night kind of wondering if the movie theaters got the idea of selling popcorn at the theater from people eating popcorn at home, or if people got the idea of eating popcorn at home because they ate popcorn at the theater. I really started thinking about that.
Things that keep you up at night, right?
Yeah,
Burning questions.
Actually did. I actually thought about that. I was like, I wonder where they got that. If it was just the movie theaters that sold that because it was easy, it was very cheap. And of course, nowadays, it's a quarter's worth of popcorn for a big bucket, and you pay, in our area, the country, it's
probably cheaper than what it would be on either coast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Crazy.
Now, though, with the evolution of, foodies, our foodie blog and foodies out there, people won't, because of the high cost of tickets and the cost of the theaters have to pay for the movies to bring them in. And a lot of people, maybe our viewers, don't know that with theaters, they have to pay a lot to get the movies in, and a majority of the price of the tickets is what really, all of the price of a ticket really goes to the cost that the theaters have to pay to get the movies at the theater. So they have to make their money through the food. And in order to really kind of get more of that in, they have to start offering a lot more than just your regular popcorn, candy, hot dog, hamburgers. So now the theaters we go to, just going into a regular theater, you can buy now shakes, ice cream, 100 different types of candy. The soda machines we have now offers 300 different flavors.
Are they like the machine, like the Coca-Cola, where you press the button?
You can press the button.
Any kind of Coke.
Great Coke. Digital, any kind, add flavors to it.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a huge, machine, the huge racks out there that you can buy the different bottles in.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have...
Convenience store.
It basically is a convenience store now.
And
then they have a little ice cream shop inside where you can get shakes made. With various, 8 or 9 different types of toppings you can get. Then they have ice cream bars you can buy. And then they have where you can get, your hot dog, specialty nachos, and they have the nachos you can grab that are already just preheated, the regular popcorn.
Yep.
But even going a step further now, they have the dine-in. They call it the fork and screen, where basically you can buy, my wife and I like going to them, but it's Applebee's level food.
Mediocre at best.
Yes, it's bar food basically. You can get, flatbread pizza, but it's still I consider it Applebee's level.
Do you think it's overpriced too?
Yes.
You do, for what you
It
get.
is.
Yeah.
It is. You
Yeah.
know, you're paying, you know, for a hamburger, you're paying, well, I think it's even overpriced at an Applebee's, but for what you're getting. But definitely at a movie theater where you're going in and you're paying $18 for a hamburger.
Right.
And
right.
it's, you know, definitely, you know, not at $18.
Sneak a Big Mac into your purse with some fries.
Well,
Sarah maybe could. Yes.
It's, you know, it's definitely not an $18 hamburger.
Right. Right.
And you know, but you're going for a different type of experience where you're eating something a bit more upscale than your regular popcorn.
Right.
You know, you're eating it at a dining experience. Now, for the theaters, for us, they have the fork and screen, which is, you know, you're in a recliner. There's a bar there in front of you, but then there's even more upscale where they don't allow kids into the theater. You have to be over 18. You know, if you have a small child, you cannot bring the small child in.
So with that, do they show kids movies? Like, you know, the Peanuts movie is coming out in a couple of weeks, which I know, like, you and Sarah are excited about that, about taking your nephew. I'm excited about taking my kids to that. So do they have movies that are for kids, like in those adult areas, or how does that work?
It really, you know, depends on the, you know, kind of film. We have seen, you know, some kids movies in there, but it's not, they don't do the big showings like they do.
Okay.
They really look at it and say, you know, who are we going to get in here?
Right, right.
So we actually did see, not to promote any type of film, but we saw Transylvania 2. And what they called it a cinema suites, and it's reclining lazy boy type chairs.
Okay.
You know, the waitresses bring the food out to you. You have instead of a bar in front that your food's set on, there's a table that slides over in front of you. It's very relaxing. The kids can't be brought in there.
Now, can you order like drinks and food like throughout the film? So say you get like a burger and fries, and if it's a long movie, and you decide, hey, I want some nachos. They don't cut you off for ordering.
There is no cutoff.
Okay.
And the big perk in here is that you can order liquor, which of course obviously compensates for the price of the $18 hamburger. Of course, you're paying $12 for a Hurricane, but you know, but it's all top shelf liquor.
Okay, that's good.
That is, you know,
that's
you're paying a bit more, but it is yes. And it's a you know, over the years going up from a lot of our, you know, listeners. Some of our older listeners, you know, they will know that, you know, again, it started as a kid, you know, the popcorn, you know, the candy, you know, I remember the M&Ms, some of the stuff we've talked about in one of our earlier podcasts, the candy, and it's, you know, it's definitely changed as the taste, you know, the regional tastes around the country. And going to the theater in the South, there's more, I've been theaters in the South where you can get more, you know, Southern, there's definitely more, it leans more heavily toward like Coca-Cola products or like some of your more flavored drinks like orange drinks, grape drinks, I want to say
Can you get gravy?
I actually, as a matter of fact, I've been to a theater in the South where I was able to get biscuits and gravy.
I was just thinking that. I said gravy, and I thought I should have said biscuits and gravy. Now that is a matinee I could get behind. Trust me.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yes.
Man, sign me up.
And I've, you know, been to one where you can get fried chicken, which, you know, I really like, and I'm sure, you know, that there's, you know, going, interestingly, you know, enough, the theater chains really look when it comes to like foodie and food items. Something I thought was really fantastic. You'll remember, you know, Magic Johnson from the Lakers and stuff. He bought a movie chain and really looked at the foods and stuff. And I can't think of the name of the movie chain, but it was more like inner city chain.
Okay.
An inner city chain that was not performing very well. And he looked at it and he told the owners at the time that they're not looking at the, you know, the people that are going in there.
Clientele.
Looked at the clientele and the food and stuff. And it was like, you know, they like the flavored drinks. And the types of food and stuff, and changed it around, turned the entire theater chain around and made it profitable.
I wonder what that chain was. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Dickinson, Phoenix.
No, it wasn't.
I'm trying to think of the ones we have.
It's none of the ones we had around here. They were out more in like California, LA.
The West Coast. Gotcha.
Yeah, and it was. I remember it was an amazing story reading about just the business savvy of Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
It was really quite something to read, but it's all about just the food and movie theaters, and you know, and you associate being a foodie. You associate, because for me, I enjoy, you know, in watching a movie experience, food's a big part of that movie experience because you like to enjoy it. I remember just as a child going, it was always, you know, you get a box of popcorn, you get a drink.
And Junior Mints. I love Junior Mints and
actually,
popcorn.
yes, Junior Mints
are delicious with popcorn.
So I don't know if something is food is something you have to, have.
Well, with kids, I mean, we definitely always usually get popcorn and get like a drink and maybe some M&Ms or like you said, talked about on the earlier podcast. But I tend to, when I go to the movies, depending upon the type of movie it is, that kind of dictates whether or not I will eat. Because as you know, I actually love horror movies, and so does Brad. And I think I would have a hard time eating during a horror movie. And I tend to not eat during really any movie outside of kids' movies, because I always feel like the kids' movies are perfectly safe to eat in.
Yeah.
But going to see a horror movie, I tend to either eat before or eat after. Because I don't want to be eating my Junior Mints and my nachos and, come across a real gross out scene, which, might be a little bit too much for me. But that's just a personal opinion. Definitely, though, I do like popcorn. And really, when I go to the movies, that's about the only time I eat popcorn.
Yeah.
I really have a hard time eating it, just, kind of a snack at work or something, because to me, popcorn should have gobs of butter on it to be good. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing with me and popcorn. Yeah. But yeah, I have not done the fork and screen, like Brad had mentioned, the cinema, where you actually eat. I would try it someday. And, once in a while, I think it's okay to pay for an overpriced, meal. Nothing wrong with that. But I think it would just have to be a certain type of movie. So maybe I'll try that in the next couple of weeks.
And for me, like I said, my wife and I, we have date nights, and my favorite thing to do, because I do love going to the theater, and my favorite thing to do as far as our date nights, I like going to the movies, and she prefers the fork and screen. For me, sometimes the fork and screen is lost on me, even though I am, again, a foodie. I enjoy the alcohol part of it.
Mm-hmm. You get that with fork and screen.
Well, you get that with fork and screen. And actually, at some of the theaters now, you can go into the bar and you can buy the alcohol. And you can take that actually to
I've actually done that with wine.
And they'll put it in like a to-go cup.
Yes.
You just can't take the glass. But now, for me at the theater,
I've done that.
Just from my childhood, my favorite thing to get at the theater is generally just popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, sometimes the fork and screen is lost, because if I go into a fork and screen, Sarah likes going, and she'll generally get dinner. Mm-hmm. And if I'm going, I'll go ahead and get dinner too if it's dinner time. But if it was just me, I just get popcorn.
Just popcorn.
Yeah, and I would just prefer going just the regular theater myself, because I'll just normally get popcorn. Now, something else that, since we're talking about kind of the food and stuff you'll get at theaters, since I mentioned liquor, we go enough. Actually, the theater that we generally go to actually they have a really fantastic bar inside.
Inside the theater?
Inside the theater, okay. Yes. And some of our local, they actually have given a name for it called MacGuffin's.
Oh, yeah.
And it's actually very nice. You have to buy a ticket to get inside. And we've actually been there enough going to the theaters. I've actually heard a bartender talk to one of the, a regular by name who goes in to watch sports names there. And I have often thought to myself, you have to be a hardcore person to actually buy a ticket to go into a bar to drink.
Yes. How much are the tickets? I'm curious.
Well, if you're going at night, I mean, I'm sure, hopefully,
they're buying
probably. At night, the tickets are more expensive. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping the person's buying just a regular, $12 ticket.
Right.
Just to go drink, to watch sports. So
that's not so bad, right? I guess.
Well, yeah. I would not buy a movie ticket just to go in and drink. I would still go watch the movie, but this person...
You go to the bar and watch it for free, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes,
that's true.
So I'm thinking you really have to like the bar or have a really hardcore drinking problem if you're buying a ticket.
It's a social thing, maybe. He really likes the bartender or something.
But it is a very nice bar.
It's cheers. It's cheers for the movies, maybe.
Yes, it really is.
Yeah.
Something else we were going to talk about tonight that kind of blends in with the whole Dumb Cum goes to the movies was really kind of our each top 5 favorite. We want to call them foodie movies, but it doesn't really have to be so much a movie about food, but something where there was, some memory or something for us as we watched the movie. And for me, I didn't put mine in any particular order, other than we just call them a top 5. It had to have something where there was something in the movie where food was part of the theme, or there was food, something in the background, something around the movie.
Scene or something.
Food scene or something that stuck out with us. And even though as an example, I'll give this as I guess it is as an example, and I'm really kind of go back, kind of old school for this example. But I'm going to give a Joan Crawford film, Mildred Pierce, as an example, where Joan Crawford, Mommy Dearest, to most everyone,
Of course.
has basically a bakery in the film, and she's working very hard for her daughter, and her daughter basically is just kind of spoiled, snobbish, wants all the best, really a horrible child. And here's, the film is basically a drama between the mom and the daughter, and the entire time there's all this baking and cooking and all this stuff kind of going on around it, and the food plays kind of an element in the entire film, and you see this, all this going on, and it was Oscar nominated, huge film. Actually, Joan Crawford got, I believe she won the Oscar for that film. But it is a wonderful film that wasn't one of my top fives. I actually kind of thought about it for a while because I do really enjoy the film, but that is kind of an example of what you would somewhat call a food film, I guess. The food doesn't have to be the central part of the film, just kind of be a part of it and something that you just kind of remember.
Resonates with you.
Yeah, it really does resonate. So, Angela, why don't you go first?
We go first. Okay, so I will admit, this was kind of tough for me. When Brad, we decided that we were going to do this movie theme, I was like, man, you and Sarah go to the movies so much that you're probably going to have a super easy time coming up with your top 5 movies. But the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, I can do this because I love food and I also, love a lot of movies. And so I didn't really put mine in any particular order either, but I'm going to start with number 5. And actually we referenced this movie, and I posted this scene on the Dumb Crumb Facebook page last week after our condiment podcast, The Dipping Sauce with the Fries. And it's actually There Will Be Blood, which is a film from 2007, starring one of my favorite actors, Daniel Day-Lewis. And he actually won the Oscar. I think he won his second Oscar for this. He's like a 3-time Oscar winner. He is, I think, the most celebrated Oscar winner in history. You remember what he won his first Oscar for?
My Love Foot.
My Love Foot, and then it was There Will Be Blood. And then last, of course, he won it for Lincoln. So I think he's great. I think he is just an amazing actor, transforms himself into every character he plays. And in There Will Be Blood, he played Daniel Plainview, a very ruthless oil man, to say the least. And the scene that I posted last week to the Facebook page is where he is confronting Eli, the false prophet, who's actually played by Paul Dano. And he is essentially describing this scene where he has a milkshake, and they both have a milkshake. And Daniel Day-Lewis, is referring to how he's on the opposite side of the room, and he has this straw. And I can't even begin to do how he does it, because you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
He kind of steps back, and I won't make a fool of myself and try to reenact the scene, but he basically tells Eli that he has this straw, and this straw reaches like across the room, and it starts to drink your milkshake. And it's really an analogy for like the oil fields.
Yes.
And, so every time I drink a milkshake to this day, I cannot not think about that particular scene. I just want to run around and scream, I drink your milkshake. Much like last week when I said that I want to drink Chick-fil-A sauce was going to be an episode coming up because I love Chick-fil-A sauce a lot. So it's not food, it's actually a drink, but I think it qualifies. Absolutely love that scene. I think it's brilliant. And I hope that's what he submitted for his Oscar reel because it's phenomenal. So the next one that I selected is talked about horror movies earlier. And speaking of popcorn, the one movie that I always think about when it comes to popcorn, because there's actually a scene in it, is that opening scene from Scream. With Drew Barrymore, in that intro scene where she is on the phone with Ghostface, although she doesn't really know it yet, and she's talking to him. And of course she has the Jiffy Pop, and it's on the stove, and you kind of see it a couple of times as it starts to pop, and it almost looks like it's going to burn, it's going to, explode or whatever. And do they still make Jiffy Pop? I think they still do. You can still buy it. Yep. I actually haven't had it in years, but I always think of that when I think of food and scenes. That movie was right there on the top of my list, was that whole Jiffy Pop scene. Of course, we know what happened to her. She wound up getting brutally murdered and, strung up in the tree. But I always think of the Jiffy Pop. And Jiffy Pop was good popcorn, too.
Yeah.
It was really good. I mean, you popped it on the stove. It was kind of a cool setup. And yeah, we should maybe have Jiffy Pop tonight. But we went, new age and did the microwave thing. So my third movie, okay, and so this is a movie, again, it's a horror movie. And people are probably going to think I'm nuts, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's actually Silence of the Lambs is the movie that I'm thinking of. And you're probably racking your brain thinking, is she talking about Chianti or fava beans? And it's not any of that. It's actually the closing scene of the film where Hannibal actually calls Clarice when she's at like that FBI ceremony thing.
Yes.
So there is this scene at the end of the film where there's this reception taking place, and you see this FBI cake. And it almost looks like a cheesecake to me, but I think it's an actual piece of cake. And you see people gathering around like this reception table, and there is a lady that's actually cutting into this FBI cake. And this cake is so beautiful because it's got the FBI emblem on it. Like, I'm going to post a picture of it later so you guys can remember. And there is a brief second scene where they cut this cake and they lift it out of the bowl, and it makes this really cool sound. You probably think I'm nuts.
No.
But I can't explain. Like, that has always just stuck in my mind, where you see them cut this cake into this perfect, beautiful slice, and they lift it up, and it just makes this, like, I can't even describe the sound that it makes. It's just, I guess, sugar, I don't know what it is, but it's a really cool sound. And they put the FBI, the slice on the plate. And then, of course, it pans to Jodie Foster, Clarice, getting a call. And, of course, we all know what happens there. It's from Hannibal, which I also feel it's important for me to say that I'm actually not a Jodie Foster fan. Got to go off on a little bit of a tangent here. I personally am not a big fan of hers. I loved her in Silence of the Lambs because I think no one could have played her part better. The whole Hannibal sequel, with Julianne Moore, it did not work for me. The sequel or the prequel, but she was perfect in Silence of the Lambs. But it actually gets on my nerves when she's on the phone with Hannibal. And if you remember that scene, he's talking to her, and she has this really annoying way of how she says Dr. Lecter, like, over and over again. Yes. And it makes me want to, like, punch the screen. She's like, Dr. Lecter. I can't even do it. She's like, Dr. Lecter, Dr. Lecter, Dr. Lecter. The way she says it, it just drives me crazy.
Well, it's interesting that you picked, Silence of the Lambs is a good pick because, it is, I guess, food is, especially for the character of Hannibal Lecter, I guess his particular diet is, his cannibalism. Mm-hmm. And I guess, because he does have, and I guess it was kind of a theme for, that ran through all of those, pictures, because it shows him, he's so refined, and he has such good taste, and he's so smart in, everything.
Yes.
And then even when
I'm having an old friend for dinner.
Yes, he's having an old friend
Best
for dinner.
line ever.
But even when he, it shows him cooking even parts of people, it's always very, refined with all these, spices and herbs and all the best side dishes.
Do you remember seeing him cooking? I don't remember this. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Not even so much with Silence of the Lambs, but as it crossed the other pictures. And
just Sir Anthony Hopkins himself.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. I don't remember Hannibal cooking anybody.
Yeah, but the character itself. But even when he talked about, fava beans and a nice Chianti, it's, so it is, so it actually is, and part of the film, it's, I don't want to say it's like, he's a major part, but the food it almost does kind of overtake the cannibalism, but the food, does take on a very, a major part of the film. It does. It really is kind of a powerful part of the film.
And can you imagine eating anything at Buffalo Bill's house? How nasty that was?
Well, no.
I
wouldn't even want to think about that. I wouldn't even want to even if you could wipe off in an open can of soda, you wouldn't want to.
When you see that stove and you see that house and
I mean, there would be no way they could, those commercials where they have someone blindfolded and they're like, "What does it smell like?"
Yeah,
it smells horrible. Yeah. Are you sure you can't smell Febreze? No. It's hard,
Right. Well, I think as much as Hannibal might have liked people, I think he would have loved some of that amazing, delicious FBI cake because It's beautiful, and I love that scene where they cut it and they lift it out and put it on the plate. Okay, so I guess we're getting down to the my second favorite film with movies. It's actually, there was an original movie that came out in 2009, and then I want to say in 2013 there was the sequel. Maybe it was even 2012, but it was actually The Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is based on a kid's book that I remember reading when I was growing up. And this movie, I don't remember if it was DreamWorks. Was it DreamWorks? I know it wasn't Pixar. It might have been DreamWorks.
I'll go with DreamWorks.
Yeah, we're going to go with DreamWorks because, DreamWorks, they did Shrek. They've done a lot of great films. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, both of them really, were, to me, just an absolute feast for the eyes. I mean, the visual, the colors, and the story was really cute about Flint, the wannabe scientist. Very cute story. I thought it did the books, a lot of justice. But just, the town's name, Swallow Falls, when it started to rain the food and all that stuff. I mean, it's just beautiful. It's just gorgeous. And then in the sequel, they kind of veered off into like the genetically modified territory, which I thought was kind of appropriate for the times that we're living in, GMOs. There was like the strawberry, and then there was my personal favorite from the films was the taco dial, like the taco, like crocodile. And then, of course, there's this line in there about something like Taco Supreme or something. It's just a beautiful film. I mean, even if you don't have kids, if you haven't seen it, I mean, it'll make you hungry, first of all. Because when you watch it, I mean, there's just, and they've turned all these, things into like food, like animals where they're half animal and they're half food. I mean, it's really, really gorgeous. It's amazing. I absolutely love it. And my final movie that I think about with food actually just happened. And you don't know this one yet because I wouldn't tell you last night. It actually is probably my favorite comedy of all time, so far anyway. It actually came out in 1994, so the year I graduated high school. Do you know what it is? No. So, I think it was 94. Pretty sure it was. So, I know when Bridesmaids came out back in whenever that was, like 2010, something like that. Yeah. I remember everybody was like going crazy bananas over Bridesmaids. And I thought it was funny. Don't get me wrong. But when I heard people talking about how it was like the greatest comedy ever, the best comedy of all time, I was like, hold on a minute. Like, it's funny, but it's not Dumb and Dumber funny. So you know what I'm referring to now, Dumb and Dumber?
Yes.
You do? Okay. Yes. I hope so. So there's a scene in Dumb and Dumber where Harry and Lloyd are with, what is that guy's name? What's Bobby's kidnapper's name? What is his name? Mentola or Mentolia or something like that. I can't remember it exactly. But they're in the restaurant scene and there is the giant jar of atomic peppers. And it's kind of going back, and it's a dare between the two of them to try them. And the bad guy, I cannot think of his name right now, but he basically tells them to quit jacking around and just try the atomic peppers. So they both grab a handful. Harry and Lloyd both shove it into their mouths. And, of course, they're chewing it. And, they're like, this isn't so bad. And, then they start to, the famous line being, of course, it's more tingly than hot. It's one of my favorites. And then what's interesting about the scene is when they start to realize these peppers are hot, what do? Do you remember what they do? What does Harry grab? Harry grabs a squirt bottle of ketchup first. I just want to make that known. I can't believe he grabbed the ketchup first. And then he grabs the mustard, and so they're squirting the ketchup and the mustard in their mouths at the same time to like cool, their mouths down because their mouths are on fire because of this atomic pepper. So that probably is is my top favorite scene in a movie, because that movie has so many great quotable lines. I mean, it's just, I can't even begin to tell you, like, all the great lines from that movie. We could probably just do a whole episode where we quote them back and forth. But definitely the atomic pepper scene is probably my favorite food-related scenes. From one of my favorite movies, too, which I thought it was equaled out, because that's one of my favorite comedies. Probably my all-time favorite comedy. Yeah.
This will probably freak you out.
You've never seen Dumb and Dumber?
I hate that film.
Dumb Crumb, we're canceled. We can't work together anymore. Okay, side note, why do you hate Dumb and Dumber?
I have never liked the humor of that film. I have never been able to get through it. And I've tried watching it a couple of different times.
That's a challenge. We're going to challenge. We're going to challenge.
To get through that film.
Really?
Yes, and I like
You like Jim Carrey
I like Jim
and Jeff
Carrey
Daniels.
and Jeff Daniels.
Jeff Daniels is
lot.
a great actor. Like
And,
Newsroom. Like, seriously.
yes,
like
I
he's
have
great.
to go through it.
And there's another movie he was in called The Squid and the Whale or something.
Love that
Okay.
film.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow. Okay.
All right. Well, for my film.